Interestingly enough, it was a choice for me of being an attorney or being a psychologist. And I had decided after I finished school at Ohio State, got my bachelor's degree, actually, I was going to have both. I was going to do both attorney and a psychologist because I wanted the part of psychology that has to do with objective information rather than subjective, psychometrics testing. So I spent a lot of time with my master's degree learning about learning theories, and then using my PhD to do more on the research and be able to look at substantive information for the type of work I was going to do. And I got accepted to law school and PhD school at the same time, but PhD school allowed me to do it at my time, and law school I had to stop working. And I already had my practice. I was working with 2 licensed psychologists, which allowed me to do things that other people can't do. And so I got my learning and experience with people who are absolutely excellent, which is one of the reasons that I started the endowed scholarship with Dr. Bob Johnson, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. I started with psychology, and then I just let the practice morph itself. One of my really beloved professors at school had asked her one time, "What did you do not to get bored?" And she said, "I change everything up every 7 years. Sometimes I go horizontal, sometimes I add something, but I change everything so I never get bored." I took that to heart, and every 7 years I have added some things, gotten rid of some things to get to where I am today, where every day is different. When I was talking to you about forensic, some people think that means I deal with dead people. I don't deal with dead people. I deal with people who are in litigation very often. So I'm testifying in court. So my practice is really very simple. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I see patients from morning until evening. On Thursday, I normally do evaluations, and for those, I either have to write a report that's going to a judge, or I'm going to be testifying in court, and very often both. And Friday is hearings and depositions or getting my nails done. It gives me a flex day of the week. So why I wanted to do it? I wanted to be able to control my own destiny and not have anybody else tell me what to do or how to do it. And I found an area that really worked well with my personality. I'm not a hand holder. I don't know how other people feel. If you want to get better and see options, I'll help you implement them. And the other part of the reason I do it is because I never get upset with anybody who doesn't listen to me. It's your choice. But I like people who are motivated and don't like what they've been doing and want to look at options. So I teach people how to fish. I don't give them fish and they don't have to come back to me all the time. Forensic means court testimony or investigation into applications. It could be the Veterans Administration, it could be workers' comp, it could be federal, U.S. Department of Labor, it can be personal injury or products liability cases. Anything that has to do with doing an evaluation to get all the information to support the contentions of either how somebody was hurt, if they have permanent impairments, and what treatment is medically necessary and causally related to the injury they have. And I am able, and that's one of the things that's different about a psychologist. If they are experienced in the forensic method of doing things, they can take all the doctors, neurologists, orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, take all their evidence, see what's supported, and put it together, which is what I do in one document, to show the severity of impairment and why someone either is entitled to money or is entitled to benefits such as services based upon the relationship of the injury. My job is to right wrongs, and I do it not every day, I used to, and I know this probably sounds awful, but what I used to say is, I changed the world today, but I can't rely on my laurels, so I've got to do it again next week. When I can do something that if somebody else had my experience, training, and understanding, they could do too, but they don't. When I can put everything together and get somebody's benefits that are going to change their life, because what I do is what they cannot do for themselves. And that's what makes it really worthwhile. When we talk about, people talk about social justice, and I smirk at that, because social justice is only with minorities or people who don't have the availability of assets to be able to do things. I don't look at the color of somebody's skin or their ethnicity at all. I look at whether they meet the guidelines. I mean, there are times on workman's comp cases that I've rolled something back 16 years because I knew where to send the person to get the objective measures to support that was causally related to the injury, and they were never getting the treatment nor the money that they deserved to be able to recuperate from that injury. I have a case recently where someone is a white Anglo male, 10 years in the service, was a detective, had severe PTSD from seeing heads rolling in helmets when he was in Beirut and other countries and cities in the Middle East. And he's in prison for 40 years and shouldn't be. And I did an evaluation for the VA on him and the information, and I had to do some real looking into his background and how the decisions were made to make a decision that I could stand on in a report that he should not be in prison. I think that traditional medicine and what we do is absolutely imperative. But if you can't consider other factors, just something simple like tides with the moon. Why do we have more people going to mental institution or being during a full moon? Why do we have more arrests during those times? It's pretty true no matter where we are. There are certain things that I don't really understand, but you have to consider that they impact people. Now, I'm pretty traditional in the way I do things, but I also have been called New Age at times, which is what you're talking about with holistic. When it comes to cancer, you better do the protocols, but boy, there's some wonderful naturopathic physicians that have ancillary treatments that get people through the negative side effects of chemotherapy or radiation, that end up building the immune system so that they can ward off, especially with cancer. So when we don't include them, it's sort of like only using your right arm when you're right-handed and forgetting about your left. So there are many things. And Andrew Weil, who is at the University of Arizona and is integrative medicine, I actually was lucky enough in the 90s to go to his house. He used to see people for about $175 and have a whole consultation with him. Interesting person with some ideas that are not traditional. I used to do biofeedback. That's how I started in dealing with stress-related injuries, hypnosis. Utilizing those adjunct, they work. And also, very important with migraine headaches, my belief is you give time, talent, or anonymous money when you want to give back to your community for real, rather than putting your name on something. I've been, for Child and Family Resources, I was on their board. It was a nonprofit. And I gave my time and talent to make sure that it was a profitable and enjoyable event. I don't volunteer. I don't want to clean out stalls for the dogs at the Humane Society. But I am free to give free services to anybody that I choose to do that, and I do it often. One of the attorneys called me the other day and said I didn't get a bill on a particular person. I said, there's no charge. We needed to right a wrong on that. You didn't need to pay for it because he doesn't have the money to do it. There's no charge. But I decide that. So some people might not think that I'm as giving as they might like me to be, but I'm very comfortable with my balance of giving my time and talent. I mean, I have answered the phone, which I don't do often, and talked to somebody and said, come on in, we'll have an appointment and I'll schedule it. And they don't have money, or they have insurance that I don't take. But again, it's my decision to make. It's nobody else's. I decided when I turned 75 that I had 20 plus or minus years left. Now the reality is all we have is today, and today's fine. And I don't remember the last 20 or the last 75 to be. So it isn't that there's less time, there's just that much time. And I looked at what I hadn't accomplished that I had wanted to do. And one of it is to write a book. And so I am scheduling into my day about an hour, and I put an app on my iPad that I can dictate into and just put it together so that I can do not a self-help book, and mostly because I have trouble with them, because they're so overgeneralized to the public and people will read it and think it's about them. Mostly they'll read it and see it about somebody else because they want to tell them they need to change rather than looking at themselves. I wanted people to look at themselves without feeling that they were being so critical that they were putting themselves down. There's two types of people in the world: people who work towards success and people who work to avoid failure. People who work to avoid failure blame the task, blame the test, blame the teacher, blame the parents, whatever, instead of looking at what their contributions are. And even though I can talk to somebody for about 20 minutes, I can tell you if they've been molested, I can tell you if they came from an alcoholic family, I can also tell you if they don't tell the truth. And most people who don't tell the truth is because they don't think the truth is good enough, not because they are a consummate liar. When you see people who have vitas, resumes, and we have had some very prominent people in the news who had vitas and said things that they did that they never did, the reason they did that is they didn't think what they did was good enough, so they had to embellish. I want people to recognize what they did is good enough. And if there's something they missed that they really want to do, they can still do it. I spend a lot of time at work so that I can travel all over the world. So I have the money and the ability to do what's important, whether it's, I have 2 endowed scholarships, one in my parents' name and one in my late partner's name. I owe both of those, my parents and my partner, everything. I could not be where I am today without them. Blessed. So I spend time doing, if this makes sense, I believe my parents can see me. Now, please don't misunderstand. I don't see them in the room or talk to them. But my joke to everybody is, I think they can see me, and I don't want to do anything that would embarrass them. I just wish I had thought that way when they were alive. I would have done some things differently much earlier in my life. But I live my life that way. And it isn't one of perfection. I make mistakes. I can be short with people. But I honestly believe what you put out is what you get back. And most of the people that I see that have severe problems are very negative about everything. They see what can go wrong. They don't see what's really good in the people around. Everybody has something good about them. When I have patients that I don't like, which is very unusual because my friends say I like everybody and I think everybody's my friend. I know they've been treated badly by people their whole life. So I bend over backwards to make sure that they get every benefit they can. And with people I do like, it's easy. It's just natural. In the 70s, I was supervising doctoral students. I was just going to begin my doctoral program. And my business partner, Dr. Johnson, came up to me one day, took me by the arm and said, "You're the boss here. If somebody's not doing what they need to do, you can tell them to leave." And I looked at him and I said, "Am I abusing my power?" And he said, "Big time." And he said, if they get from A to B differently than you do, but they get there, they're doing it right. Probably the next day there was a meeting. These are all doctoral students learning about biofeedback and some of the ancillary things that we were teaching. And Dr. Johnson asked me about everybody that was in the room, and I said, "Everybody's doing a great job. It's a pleasure to work with them." I think everybody's mouth dropped open, if you want to know the truth. But I learned that day, and I've never forgot it. You don't have to do it my way. If you get from point A to point B, that's all that matters. I don't have to control it. They don't have to be a clone of me, and I've never made that mistake again. One of the things I've always believed, I shouldn't be here. My parents got married. My mother had a career. She was a college woman, and they weren't going to have children for a couple years. And she went to her gynecologist to have regular thing when she got, and he said, "I don't think you can have children. And if you want, I think you're going to have trouble. And if you really want a family, you better start now." I was conceived that week. So I've never met Dr. Woolman, but I have said thank you many times. Then, just before being 7 months pregnant with me, my mother had to have her appendix out. And there was not one child and mother who had successfully survived, both of them, an appendectomy in 1949. And my mother told me, and I never looked it up, that we were in medical history books. It was 13 hours. She couldn't cough because my brain wouldn't have been, and my lungs wouldn't have been well developed enough, and there was no such thing as prenatal care back then. And she walked out of the hospital still pregnant with me. And after I was born, I lost 1 pound my first week. They used to keep them in the hospital for a week back then. And I lost 1 pound because I couldn't take any formula in at all. And I had to be weaned on goat's milk every 4 hours, 24 hours a day for 8 months. So I decided when I was told when I was much older, there's something I'm supposed to do. And anytime somebody has survived something that they shouldn't, I don't know what it is they're supposed to do. I just know there's something they're supposed to do. And there have been a few things that happened. I should have died in a car accident probably about 15 years ago. A car coming in our lane had coming straight at 65 miles an hour next to the freeway, no place to go. You get very quiet then because you know you're going to be dead. And at the last moment, he just took out all the mailboxes on the side and bumped. And I looked at my husband and I said, I would have been dead. And he said, no, you would have had brain damage and every bone in your body would have been broken. And I went, you don't understand. I wouldn't have been me. I don't want to be here if I'm not going to be me. So I've always looked at all the gifts, those unusual things that happen, in the most positive way possible. And I do the same thing with people that I see. Look at what you can do. I'm not going to run a marathon. I'm 75 years old. Who cares? Use your gifts. Develop ones you have that you forgot about. That's what makes the difference. Oh, the legacy that I'm going to have. Again, I have 2 endowed scholarships at the University of Arizona. If I had used that as a legacy, then I would have been diverting the funds that really needed to go for my late partner, Dr. Bob G. Johnson, and my parents, Malvina and Morton Peck. So when I was contacted, it made sense to me that I could have a legacy for what I've done without disrupting the legacies that I've set up for people that I thought were instrumental and essential for me to be the person I am today.